The evening lights shimmered across the harbor of Monte Carlo, where luxury yachts lay still upon the calm waters. The streets, alive with the hum of engines and the murmur of conversations in French and Italian, carried an air of elegance. Among the crowd was Antoine, a young man of 24, known by many locals for his quiet but steadfast character. He was not a gambler, nor a man of fortune, but he had something far more precious. His younger sister, Camille. Camille, 17, with eyes full of curiosity, was often dazzled by the glamour of Monaco. That evening, she had begged Antoine to take her to the promenade so she could see the grand casino from up close, not to play, but simply to admire the beauty of the building and its glowing facade. Antoine had agreed, though always cautious. His instincts were sharper than most, and the world, he believed, was not always as kind as it appeared beneath the sparkling lights. As they strolled by the marble steps leading towards the casino entrance, a group of strangers passed them. Men in tailored suits, voices heavy with laughter, the smell of expensive cologne trailing behind. One of them stopped. He looked at Camille longer than he should have, his smirk lingering, words spilling in a language she did not quite understand. Camille lowered her eyes, uncomfortable. Antoine noticed. The man stepped closer, blocking their path. His tone sharpened, playful yet intrusive. Camille's discomfort deepened, her body edging closer to her brother. Antoine's gaze locked onto the stranger. His lips did not move, yet his silence spoke louder than words. For a moment, the glamour of Monte Carlo vanished. The streets still glittered, the music from the casino still played, but for Antoine, there was only one thought. Protect Camille. The stranger leaned forward, his laughter echoing in the night. He whispered something crude, and Camille flinched. Antoine placed his hand gently on her shoulder, guiding her away, but the man did not move. He blocked them again, his companions watching from a short distance, curious but entertained. The tension thickened. Antoine could feel his heart steady, not fast but heavy, as though preparing for something inevitable. He had promised himself long ago that no one would harm his sister. Not here, not anywhere. Yet in the splendor of Monaco, a shadow had begun to creep into their lives. Antoine's hand tightened slightly on Camille's shoulder as the stranger's grin widened. The street around them was still alive with tourists, yet it felt strangely hollow, as though the world had narrowed to just the three of them. Camille looked up at her brother, her voice a soft whisper. "Let us go, Antoine." Her words trembled, but Antoine's expression remained composed. His voice, calm yet firm, cut through the thick air. "You have had your fun, monsieur. Step aside." The man chuckled, tilting his head. His accent hinted at wealth from elsewhere in Europe, though his manners betrayed something less refined. His companions, still a few steps behind, exchanged amused glances. For them, it was a game. For Antoine, it was a warning. Antoine guided Camille past, placing his body as a shield between her and the stranger. Reluctantly, the man moved, his smirk never fading, his eyes following Camille as though marking her. As they walked away, Antoine did not look back, yet his senses remained sharp. He felt the stare burning into their backs, long after the laughter of the group faded into the night. By the time they reached the quieter streets near their home in La Condamine, Camille tried to shake it off. "It was nothing," she said softly, though her voice betrayed her unease. But Antoine knew better. He had seen the type before. Men who believed money or power gave them the right to anything they desired. And men like that rarely let go so easily. At their small apartment overlooking the harbor, Antoine poured himself a glass of water, the reflection of the city lights dancing on the surface. He stared out the window, deep in thought. Camille tried to laugh, tried to change the subject, but Antoine's silence grew heavier by the minute. That night, as the sound of waves carried across the bay, Antoine stood alone on the balcony. His eyes scanned the dark streets below, and for the briefest moment, he thought he saw a figure leaning against a car, watching, waiting. When he blinked, the figure was gone. The glamour of Monaco had not dimmed, but for Antoine, a shadow had settled. Something had begun, and he knew it would not end with a single encounter. The following day brought sunshine over the Riviera, the golden light spilling across the sea as though nothing dark had happened the night before. Camille went about her routine with youthful optimism, preparing sketches for her art class, humming softly as she worked. But Antoine could not shake the image of the stranger's smile. It had carved itself into his thoughts like a warning carved into stone. By midday, Antoine walked with Camille towards her class near the Jardin Exotique. The narrow lanes were lively, filled with tourists, scooters rattling by, and the smell of fresh bread from the bakeries. Camille, holding her sketchbook, began to relax, almost convinced her brother's worry was unnecessary. Then he appeared again, the stranger, leaning casually against a black car at the end of the street, dressed in another expensive suit. He greeted Camille with a small wave, as though they were old friends. Her steps faltered, and Antoine immediately placed himself between them. The man spoke softly, his tone coated with politeness that felt false. "You should not hide her away, my friend. A girl so beautiful deserves attention." Antoine's jaw tightened. "She is not your concern." The stranger smiled, unfazed. "We shall see. Monaco is small. Paths cross often." Camille clutched Antoine's arm, her face pale. They turned quickly, taking another street. Yet even in the crowded lanes, Antoine felt eyes on them, lingering like a shadow that refused to leave. That evening, Antoine walked alone down by the harbor, searching. The stranger was nowhere to be seen, but Antoine knew in his gut this was only the beginning. A few days later, Antoine received word from a friend who worked as a waiter inside the Casino de Monte Carlo. The friend whispered of a wealthy man from Eastern Europe who had arrived recently with his entourage, a man known for gambling recklessly and for treating women as if they were trophies. His name was Victor. Antoine's suspicions were confirmed. Victor was no random visitor. He was dangerous, his presence wrapped in arrogance and power. That night, against his better judgment, Antoine entered the casino. He did not gamble, but he walked through the grand hall, pretending to be another curious face among the crowd. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, laughter echoed from the gaming tables, and glasses of champagne clinked in the hands of the wealthy. Then he saw him, Victor, surrounded by his companions, throwing chips onto the table with careless confidence. His eyes wandered the room until they met Antoine's. He smiled, slow and deliberate, as though he had been expecting him. Antoine held his gaze for only a moment before leaving. Outside, the cool night air felt sharper than ever. The message was clear. Victor was watching, waiting, and he had no intention of stepping away. Life in Monaco continued with its usual glamour, but for Antoine and Camille, unease followed like a shadow. Camille tried to bury herself in her art, painting the cliffs and the sea, yet fear colored her brushstrokes. She avoided crowded streets, always keeping close to her brother. One afternoon, as Antoine returned home, he found an envelope slipped under their door. Inside, a single photograph. Camille, captured from afar, walking along the promenade. No words, only the image. Antoine's hands shook with quiet fury. This was no game now. It was a declaration. Victor wanted him to know he could reach Camille anytime, anywhere. That night, Antoine confronted Camille gently. "You must be careful. Do not walk alone. Do not trust anyone near you." Camille's eyes filled with tears. "Why us, Antoine? We have nothing he could want." Antoine did not answer. He knew the truth. Men like Victor wanted what they could not have, simply because they believed no one had the right to deny them. And Antoine had denied him. Days turned into weeks, each one heavier than the last. Antoine worked quietly at the harbor during the day, yet his eyes were always scanning the streets. Camille's laughter grew less frequent, her world shrinking to the safety of their small apartment. One evening, Antoine's friend from the casino came again with news. "Victor has been speaking of her. Your sister. He talks as though she is already his." Antoine's chest tightened. The city, with all its beauty, felt smaller, more suffocating. He began to notice men watching from corners, leaning against cars, pretending to smoke but never leaving until he and Camille had gone inside. The tension in their home grew unbearable. Camille begged her brother to let them leave Monaco, to escape to the countryside, but Antoine shook his head. If we run, he will follow. It must end here. The storm was gathering. Antoine could feel it. One night, Camille did not return from her class. Antoine waited, pacing the apartment, every tick of the clock echoing like thunder. At last, his phone buzzed. A message. She is safe. For now. Meet me alone. The harbor. Midnight. Antoine's blood froze. He knew it was Victor. The trap had been set. He arrived at the harbor under the cover of night. The sea was dark, the luxury yachts silent, as though holding their breath. Victor stood there, immaculate in his suit, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. Two of his men waited in the shadows. Where is she? Antoine demanded. Victor smiled. Safe. She will remain so, if you understand your place. Antoine stepped closer, his fists clenched. But Victor only laughed, shaking his head. You cannot win, my friend. You are a fisherman, a nobody. I am power. I am wealth. And I always get what I want. Antoine's silence was heavy, his eyes locked onto Victor's. He could feel the rage burning, yet he knew one wrong move and Camille would pay the price. Unknown to Victor, Camille was not as helpless as he believed. While he played his game with Antoine at the harbor, Camille had managed to slip away from the apartment where she had been watched. She ran through the narrow streets of Monaco, her breath ragged, her feet carrying her towards the harbor. She hid in the shadows, listening to the conversation between Victor and her brother. Her heart pounded as she realized the danger Antoine faced alone. She wanted to run to him, but she knew it would ruin his chance. Instead, Camille pulled out her phone, trembling fingers dialing the only person she trusted besides her brother. The waiter from the casino. She whispered quickly, begging for help, before cutting the line and crouching lower into the darkness. At the harbor, Victor stepped closer to Antoine, his voice turning darker. You will tell her she belongs to me, or you will regret it. Antoine's breath was steady, his resolve unshaken. She belongs to no one.
Not you.
Not me. She is free. Victor's smile faded. For the first time, anger flickered in his eyes. He gestured, and one of his men moved forward. The silence of the harbor broke as footsteps echoed on the wooden boards. Antoine braced himself, every muscle ready, every thought fixed on one thing. Protect Camille, no matter the cost. The night exploded into violence. The first man lunged, but Antoine moved with precision, years of quiet strength from labor at the harbor fueling his every strike. The sound of fists against flesh, the crash of bodies against wooden crates, shattered the silence of Monaco's elegance. Victor watched, his fury building as Antoine fought with a desperation born of love, not pride. One man fell, another staggered back, yet still they came. Then, Camille appeared from the shadows, her voice cutting through the chaos. Antoine, Victor spun, startled by her escape. For the first time, uncertainty touched his face. Antoine seized the moment, driving forward, forcing Victor back against the rail. The sea churned below, dark and endless. The struggle was brutal, raw. Victor's wealth and arrogance meant nothing now. It was strength against strength, will against will. The clash echoed across the harbor, until at last, one final blow sent Victor crashing to the ground. Antoine stood over him, chest heaving, blood on his knuckles, Camille rushing to his side. The glamour of Monaco sparkled around them, but the truth was laid bare. Beneath the lights and luxury, shadows had been broken by the bond of a brother who would never yield.